In this video, we're showing you how to make a doll's house in woods. Looking at the design itself, this was actually chosen by what was formerly known as the Welsh Craft Council and displayed to Princess Diana in Newtown back in the 1980s. The design is based on a traditional Welsh cottage. It was a popular item that we used to make. As you can see from the video, we start off by making templates and then draw around our templates onto the wood itself. The different parts of the design are made from different thickness of ply. So the base, the back, the roof and the insides of our doll's house are made from 5mm thick ply. The two sides, they are made from the thickest ply, being 18mm, and the front of our doll's house is made from 12mm ply. For those of you who work in inches, the back, the roof, the inside and the base, they are made from 1/4 inch ply. The two sides are made from 3/4 inch ply and the front is made from 1/2 inch ply. This is the example that we are showing you, but as we always say with all of our demonstrations, you can adapt it and change it to suit yourself. You don't have to restrict yourself to making the exact same pattern as we have done. So as you can see, the start of this process on the coronet saw is to get a basic profile of all of the different components that we're going to use to make our doll's house. So we cut out the outline profile of the base, the two side pieces, front and back, and the roof itself. And this completes our first part of making the doll's house. Once we have finished getting a basic profile for all of our components, we then turn our attention to the internal cuts. So the cuts that will be done inside the different panels. This will be done on the front of our cottage as well as the internal piece inside that will contain the chimney stack. So we drill a pilot hole, either using a pillar drill or a hand drill. We can then go across to our scroll saw and to cut these pieces out. Now the pieces that we cut out, we will keep these pieces because later on they will be used as our doors and windows for our doll's house. We also use our scroll saw to cut the wall that will go on the inside of the doll's house and the door that will go on the inside of the doll's house. There's also a recess that will be cut out of this piece, and that will be used to contain the chimney stack that is inside the cottage within. This is an important part in tying the whole cottage design together. Once we finish cutting those parts out, we cut the curves on our base and the curves on the roof of the design. The way we can differentiate between the front and the back of our cottage roof is by cutting two little curves that will go over the windows on the fronts. We then go on to our bandsaw and we cut a diagonal piece, and this is going to be used for our chimney stack. This is the hinge that will allow the roof to open and close. So we start off by marking it to the right size that we want, and using a hacksaw we cut it to the length. As this is a doll's house and will be intended for children to play with, we take off any sharp edges that are left over using a file. Once we have taken the sharp edge off our hinge, we then proceed with attaching the hinge to the softwood that we have prepared. The type of hinge that we're using is piano hinge, and to attach the one to the other, we start off by using a spike to mark the position. We then screw the screws into the wood itself. Once we prepared the wood and the hinge in this way, we then mark an A on the wood and an A on the hinge, and a B on the other side of the hinge and a B on the wood, so we know how the hinge will line up correctly. The reason for this then, we have to proceed with shaping our wood. So we cut it on the bandsaw and then go across to our belt sander and proceed with shaping our softwoods. In this example as well though, to shape our top ridge piece on top of the hinge that will be the top of our cottage, we also use the hand planer. So now we've finished shaping our woods, we put the hinge back on the wood itself, screw it together, and this completes another part of the process of making our doll's house. Now we turn our attention to the sides, and again we're working with the hand plane. What we do, we want both of the side pieces identical, so we clamp them both together in the vise and use our plane to smooth the edges of both at the same time. We then go on and work on our base on the belt sander, shaping it as we go along. The other parts of the design, we want to get them nice and even. So the back and the front, we can clamp them together on our belt sander using 2 hand clamps. The next part of the process is to mark the positions that the different components will go into. So we're using a set square to get things nice and square and measuring out the positions that the sides will go into. Once again, we use our spikes to give us an indent into the woods. We drill a hole with a piece of wood underneath to stop us damaging the table. We also countersink all of our screw holes, which will allow the screws to sit flat on the design. Measure out the exact position. And when making something like a doll's house, accuracy is an important part of this process to make sure the design comes together. We're also marking out where that internal piece for the ceiling to give us our 2 floors. So the design we're using for our cottage, we will have a downstairs and an upstairs. So we mark it out, we then go across to our coronet saw, and this can just be used by dropping the saw down. We can get an indent cut out as a recess, and the recess will allow that ceiling to be inserted into the 2 side pieces. We put our sides back in the vise and drill holes. As you can see, we've put both sides in the vise at the same time, and this allows us to line up the screw positions more accurately. We proceed with screwing the sides on, and at this stage we are just checking that we've got everything right. When it comes to finishing all the individual pieces, we will have to dismantle the cottage once more to do our hand finishing. But as we're going along, we can check that all the positions are accurate and that it fits together nicely. We're now working on the back, so again, mark out the positions that we want everything to go in, drill out the holes where the screws will go into, use our countersink that gives you a better finish when it comes to putting the screws in and screw the back panel into position. The next part of the process is working on our chimney stack. So we have two parts to the chimney stack. The first part that you can see us working on will be on the inside of our doll's house. There's a second part then that attaches to the outside of the roof. So we're just doing a little bit of chip carving just to give a more authentic, almost a stone finish to our chimney stack. We then go on to working on our roof. So again, we drill out the holes, and this will be used to connect our ridge piece that has our piano hinge on to the roof itself. We're also using that countersink again, so we'll get a nice finish where the screws are nice and flush with the edge of the ply itself. So we screw the roof pieces to the inside using that spike to get an initial indent into the softwoods. Put 4 screws on the front and then 4 screws on the back. And this will allow us to attach our roof together. We put our roof onto the doll's house itself, and we mark out the positions for screwing the roof onto the 2 side pieces of the doll's house. As you'll notice, just a little trick that you may want to use, we then shift the roof of the doll's house to the one side, and this means that you will not be drilling into the 2 side pieces. We countersink where we're going to screw into, and then use that spike again and just drill a little bit just as a guide for our screws to go into. When it comes to attaching the roof to the doll's house, we screw into the back of the roof. This means the appearance on the front doesn't have any screws on, and you can also open the front part of the roof. So when attaching your roof to the doll's house, you screw into the back. The back is fixed, the top can be lifted up using that piano hinge. The second part of carving on the chimney stack is the outside of the chimney stack that attaches to the roof. Next part of the process is to focus our attention once more on the front of our doll's house. So we're putting 2 hinges on the side of the front, and again, like with the roof where we can open the front part, the front of the doll's house you're going to be able to open using the hinges. You just notice we attach the hinges to the front and then use a little bit of card underneath just to raise that front panel up a little bit, and that will allow it to be opened and closed more smoothly. If you don't allow for just that little lip, it means that you'll have more problems when trying to open and close your front panel. So screw those hinges to the side piece and onto the windows and doors. One thing it is worth noting, when we did the windows and doors, afterwards we just took a little extra off the sides that they open on just to allow them to open and close smoothly. But again, we're using simple hinges just to allow us to open and close all of our doors and windows. We make lintels and windowsills. So to do this process, we've marked out using some walnuts, and these will be stuck on the lintel above the door and the windowsills below each window. We also make a cut on the chimney stack using our coronet saw, and it's the chimney stack that is on the inside of the doll's house. Reason for this, that ties together the inside of the design, because we will put our wall into that recess. We do a little cut just for decoration on our chimney around the top, and then onto the ladder that will be used for getting from the one floor to the other floor of our cottage. So again, using the coronet saw, because of its accuracy, is ideal for making the two side pieces of our ladder and the runners as well. So we then just push the rungs into position, and as that saw, the coronet is accurate, it allows you to do this. If you want a little bit of extra security, a little bit of glue in each rung will allow them to be attached more securely. Now we're on to using our drill, our hand drill, and that is to drill the hole for the chimney at the top. And it's these little details that you add that gives your doll's house a little bit more character and a little bit more authenticity. We can then check the position, check that everything is okay, putting the insides together, and then we're marking out for the position for the outside of our chimney. Drill a hole through the front of the roof itself, and then you can attach your top of your chimney stack to the roof, lining it up so the whole chimney stack is nicely lined together. That chimney stack on the outside as well is also useful because it acts as an anchor to hold the front of the roof open. So when children are playing with it, it allows you to hold it open. So there you go, that is the process of actually making a doll's house, but in many ways it is only half of the finished process, because we also have to think about the finishing. The finishing of your doll's house is an important part of the process. In our original design, we would paint the front and the sides, but in this one, we've chosen to do it slightly differently, just so you can see a slightly different finish. So what we've done, we've stained things like the chimney stack, the base and the roof, and then shellacked the front and the sides. Again, this comes down to individual preference, what you prefer basically. So you're staining all the different parts, and then once you've stained it, we're adding our shellac. So the same process as we always go through, you're adding 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, rubbing it down in between each coat, and then a finishing coat of linseed oil mixed with beeswax. With the stain finish then, we stain it, shellac it, rub it down with a finishing sandpaper, and repeat the process the same as we do with our shellacking. To attach our lintel and then the window sills as well, you're just adding a little bit of glue, something like a super glue or whatever glue you've got available. We are now using Starbond super glues, fantastic product. Check it out in the description because we're fortunate enough that they've actually given us a discount to offer all of yourselves. So check that one out if you need any super glues. And then we put everything back together. So that's the process. We put it all together. We focus then on our finishing, and then we put it all back together again once the finishing's done. So we add little stops on the doors and windows just to give it a little bit of extra character, and then proceed with assembling our doll's house once more. Might be worth as well, if you're doing this for the first time, to put little markings on the different parts so you know the order that they go back in. You can put little stickers and things like that just to give yourself a guide. So for instance, put in, as we did with the hinge, A on the hinge and A on the piece of metal that it attaches to. Now you can see us put in the insides together. So we put that chimney stack to hold the door. We also put that ceiling in using the recess. And that is the process for how we put together a doll's house. The idea as well with those little cutouts above the windows, it's in keeping with how they used to do the thatched cottages. So there you go, that is just a demonstration for how you can make a Welsh cottage style doll's house in woods. If any of you are interested in having a go at making your own doll's house, there's information and the dimensions for making this one in the description below. Also check out that link for Starbond super glues. Fantastic product. You can get a discount by putting in the code LOVESPOON. Thank you all again for watching. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you know when we upload another video. And as always, we'll be back again soon with more videos.